So what about rigs? Well look, when you get into carp fishing, one of the things it's easy to do is to become so transfixed by trying to find a magic formula for catching carp that you become completely obsessed with certain rigs and baits. But the reality of the situation is that even people like myself who do a lot of carp fishing, and a lot of the top carp anglers I know, really do keep it simple. We tend to find 2 or 3 rigs that work for us, and we use them 90% of the time. I'm going to show you a couple of rigs now that are really effective. One's a bottom bait rig, one's a pop-up rig, and they will work probably on about 90% of the waters that I fish. Very occasionally I'll do something a little bit more sophisticated, but believe me, fishing accurately and locating fish is far more important than having the latest fancy rig. Now the most basic rig for bottom bait fishing, and I'm talking here about sinking baits, they can be boilies, bits of luncheon meat, sweet corn, or anything that sits on the bottom, is a thing we call the knotless knot. Now to create the knotless knot, I prefer to use either mono or fluorocarbon hook links. When I'm PVA bag fishing, I always use braid, but if I'm not PVA bag fishing and I'm using bottom baits, I'll go for mono or fluorocarbon every single time. This is a really nice mono called Magic Touch by Suffix. It's very good actually. It's a nice supple mono, but it's just stiff enough to make this rig work really well. Start off by taking yourself a generous length of material. It can be braid or it can be mono, it doesn't matter. Works equally well with either. I've got round about 18 inches there. Always take more than you want your finish hook length to be. And then, just like we did with the loop method on the end of our main line, double over a length of the line like this to form a loop. Then when it's doubled, form another loop and push the little loop at the end through the new loop, moisten it, draw it tight, and what you end up with is a neat little loop at the end of what is going to be your hook link. Trim that off. Making sure it's tight first. Trim it off. And the next stage now, having created that neat little loop, is to put the bait on. In this case I've chosen an 18mm Source boilie. Got a baiting needle here, boilie here. Put the boilie on the needle like this, and then taking the needle, pop the little loop at the end of the hook link onto the end of the needle, onto the little hook there, and just pull the boilie on. Now once it's located, we need something on the end there to stop it coming off when it's being cast. So what we use is one of these. This is a boilie stop. You can buy these from any tackle shop. It's just a simple little plastic tag that you pull up tight like this, and then you don't need all those bits, you only need one to hold it on, so we'll just trim the others off. Now our boilie's on the end of the line and it can't come off. You'll find out in a moment why I always put the bait on first and not the hook. Now for the knotless knot, I find that this pattern of hook is ideal. This is actually a Corda Longshank X, but the Fox Series 1 is another hook of this type. It's basically a fairly narrow gape long shank hook with an inturned eye. There's the hook, 10-degree inturned eye, fairly long shank, very sharp point with a small neat barb. That's a good hook pattern for this particular rig. And to make the knotless knot, always work from the back of the shank, not the inside of the bend, and start off by taking the free end of your hook link, passing it through the eye and drawing the bait up like this. Now I like the bait when I'm fishing with bottom baits to be just below the hook bend. There should be a small gap between the top of the bait and the bend of the hook, about 1 to 2 millimeters. Once you've drawn that hook link up to there, just grasp the boilie with a couple of fingers so it won't move, and then, and this is the magic bit, just take a turn over what will become the hair, and then once you've done that, make a series of other tight turns that butt up against each other. The number you use is up to you. It's anywhere between 5 and 11 is the standard. I normally make 7 actually. Having done that, trap the thing, and then again working from the same direction, from the back of the hook eye, take the free end and pass it through once again like this, and then draw it tight, and there's your knotless knot. Very, very simple rig to tie, but a very effective one. Now, as I say, this is a rig for me that works best with bottom baits. One of the key things about this is that if you look at the inturned eye of the hook and the fact that I'm using mono, which is stiffer than braid, you'll notice that the line emerges from inside the hook eye at quite a sharp angle. It's almost like a dog leg, isn't it? Well, that performs a very important function, and that is that if a carp tries to eject this bait by backing off it, the hook will always turn and dig because of that little dog leg. It's a key component in this rig's performance. And as I've already mentioned, I prefer to use mono or fluorocarbon for this rig. You get that nice angle that helps the hook to turn and prevents the fish from ejecting it. Now, you can use this presentation with braid, but I don't think it's quite as effective. So there you have it. That's the knotless knot. Probably the best bottom bait rig going. I use it an awful lot, and quite honestly, in my opinion, most of the time other bottom baits rigs are not only more complicated to tie, they're also actually inferior.